Most musicians think that to develop the kind of ear that lets you quickly recognize chord progressions, improvise chords and melodies freely, or play chords straight from your imagination, you need to recognize the quality of each chord: major, minor, major seventh, dominant, etc. Others believe you should calculate the interval or distance between chords, and some believe that you should do both. But after teaching the ear training to over 2,500 musicians and developing a unique science-based method now used in top universities and music colleges worldwide, I can tell you this with confidence: neither of those paths will lead to truly intuitive chord recognition skills. They might work for a few musicians, usually the ones who had already intuitively grasped the concepts I'm about to share, even before they ever started the ear training. But for everyone else, they lead to frustration, overthinking, and confusion, especially when applied to real music. Instead of recognizing chord quality or calculating intervals, you need to train your ear to feel the function of each chord. That is, the role the chord plays inside the tonality. When you do that, you stop guessing and calculating, and start recognizing chords intuitively, just like you instinctively know red is red and blue is blue. And in this video, I'll walk you through 2 key exercises to help you get started. If you find this content valuable, don't forget to like and subscribe. Scientific studies in music cognition have shown that we don't hear music as a series of isolated sounds or intervals. We perceive music through the lens of tonality. Our brain instinctively tries to organize chords within an underlying key, which is exactly why thinking in terms of chord function within the key is so powerful. For those of you who don't know this yet, each chord has a specific quality depending on which scale degree it's built on. For example, in the major key, the 1st, 4th, and 5th degrees generate major chords. The 2nd, 3rd, and 6th degrees form minor chords, and the 7th degree produces a diminished triad. This pattern is universal and can be applied to any major key. This means that when you hear the scale degree of the chord, you automatically know both its quality and its root. You know exactly where to put your fingers on your instrument. But if you only know the quality, you're missing the root and still left guessing. Then, let's clear up a common myth. Some people think all major chords sound the same. After all, they're all major, right? But in reality, that's not true. Both the 1st and 5th chord are major, but the 1st chord feels resolved. The 5th chord feels tense. That's why learning to recognize the scale degree of the chord gives you a superpower. Once you have it, your ear instantly knows what it's hearing, with no thinking needed. Let's start practicing. In order to start internalizing the sensation of each chord within the tonality and to achieve the kind of intuitive chord recognition I described earlier, we need to move step by step. So, we start with a limited set of chords. Specifically, in this first exercise, you'll only hear 3 possible chords: the 1st, the 4th, and the 5th. Here's how it works. Step 1. After the first listen, your goal is to identify the tonic, the home of the key. That means you should be able to sing the tonic note of the scale you're hearing. This step is essential because it tells us your mind is actually tuned into the right key. Without it, you're guessing. Step 2. On the second listen, you'll hear the same progression again. This time, your job is to recognize the chords. Now, here's something important. There are 2 thinking strategies I want you to use, and only these 2. First strategy. Pay attention to the global feeling of the chord. Ask yourself, which chord feels completely resolved? That's 1. Which one feels the most tense and wants to pull back home? That's 5. Which one feels like the middle ground? Not too tense, not too resolved, kind of suspended? That's 4. For some of you, this first strategy will already work in this simple exercise. But if you're struggling, don't worry. That's where the second strategy comes in. This strategy involves singing the bass note of the chord, which, in this simple exercise, will always be the root of the chord. From that bass note, sing the scale down to the tonic and count the steps. But here's the critical part. Don't use any other strategies, like for example, calculating intervals between chords, trying to identify individual notes inside the chord, analyzing the chord quality. Why? Because all of those approaches will block you from developing the intuitive connection to the feeling of each chord, which is key to recognizing chords quickly and without thinking. And after we practice this exercise, I'll explain exactly why those other approaches are so problematic. Let's start with the first listening. Your task is to recognize and sing the tonic afterward. Now for the second listening, your task is to identify the scale degree of each chord you hear. So, the correct answer is 5, 4, 1, and back to 5. Let us know in the comments how it went for you. Before we move on to the next exercise, I want to explain something that's absolutely essential. There is no difference between effective and ineffective ear training other than the thinking strategy you adopt. But what exactly is a thinking strategy? It's simply where you place your attention. And where you put your attention, your mental focus shapes the kind of ear you're developing. If you're already able to recognize the chords directly by their feeling in this simplified exercise, that's as good as it gets. But as we make the progressions more complex, you'll need to revert to the thinking the scale strategy. So what I'm going to say applies to you as well. By singing the scale down from the bass note to the tonic, you're forcing your brain to stay anchored in the tonality. This is critical because for most musicians, the tonality in their mind is unstable at first. They don't realize it, but their internal sense of key often shifts as they're trying to figure out the chords. Luckily, just the act of singing the scale, aloud or in their head, locks the key in place, which is essential. Otherwise, the perceived feeling of the chord will suddenly change. For example, the moment you switch to thinking about the intervals between chords, you're no longer anchoring to any key, and the perceived key in your head starts shifting randomly. So, let's take a progression in C major as an example. Instead of perceiving C major as chord 1 and F major as chord 4, your mind might flip key and hear C major as the 5 and F major as the 1, meaning your internal key has shifted from C major to F major without you even realizing it's happening. The question is, how can you internalize the feeling of chord 1 if what you're now calling chord 1 actually feels like chord 5? You can't, right? This is also why exercises that play random chords and ask you if they're major, minor, and so on are largely ineffective. The chords are played out of context, so the key keeps shifting in your mind, and the same chord can feel like a dozen different things depending on which key you're perceiving internally. So stick to one of the two strategies. Feel the global sensation of the chord, or match the bass note and sing the scale to the tonic. That's it. No intervals, no exercises that play random chords. Now, let's move on to exercise 2. This will be the same exercise we just practiced, but now we're adding the 6th chord to the mix. So, you'll hear progressions using 1st, 4th, 5th, and 6th. The concepts are the same. Just know that the 6th chord carries a more melancholic, sadder feeling compared to the others. Again, you have two options. Feel the overall sensation of the chord, or match the bass note, sing the scale, and count the steps to the tonic. Let's begin with the first listening. As you hear it, try to recognize and sing the tonic. Now for the second listening, your task is to identify the scale degree of each chord you hear. Alright, the correct answer is 6154. Let us know in the comments how it went, and if this is helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Before moving on to the next exercise, check out what's possible in just a few weeks of using this method. This was Barry's level before he started the training.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not even gonna waste our time on this. That's just too hard for me to figure that out.
In the next clip, you'll see how he can now recognize chords by ear alone after our training.
One, 5, 4, 6.
All right, you've got an idea now of how you can gradually get to internalize the feeling of each chord, but in real music, we also have chord inversions, seventh chords, secondary dominants, tritone substitutions, non-diatonic chords, key changes, and so on. It can actually be a lot more difficult. Unlike the exercises, real songs don't offer a limited set of options. That limited set helps you connect to chord feelings, but in songs, you never know what's coming. Plus, with multiple instruments playing together, it gets even trickier. So here's an example of a real chord progression. I'm giving you the tonic here to help you out, even though in real music, you'd need to recognize it yourself. Now, try to recognize the chords you hear.
I'm the collector of the people's dreams. Emerald sheep.
All right, the correct answer is third chord dominant 7th, 4, 1, 5. Yeah, I guess that was quite a bit more difficult than the exercises we practiced before, right? Let me know in the comments what challenges you experienced. Now, if you're thinking, this is awesome, but I'm struggling with the basic skills, like singing the scale, matching the bass note, holding the tonic in my head, and so on. That's exactly why we created an entire method with over 60 exercises to develop all the ear training skills needed for an intuitive ear, like matching pitch, singing the scale, tonic recognition, tonic retention, recognizing notes and chords, and more. It's designed to help you build these skills from scratch, step by step, all the way to advanced ear training, and it includes all the in-depth thinking strategies that make our method so effective. And on top of that, we also have an app that's completely focused on training your ear with real music. That means you can practice recognizing chords and melodies in the context of full songs. In fact, the one you heard a minute ago was a song from our app. To avoid any confusion, the app doesn't include the step-by-step exercises from our method, but it's a complementary and very useful tool for anyone interested in ear training, and it comes with a few free songs to get you started. You'll find all the links to access our full method and the app in the description below. And if you're not quite ready for any of that, no worries. Check out this other video where I walk you through the best exercises to recognize notes instantly and explain which thinking strategies to adopt and which to avoid if you truly want to develop an intuitive ear.